So this video is all about what my advice is for mums who are expecting their first baby or people who are thinking about expecting or want to have a baby. Does that make sense? So this is obviously my experience, and I think the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because every person's experience is different. And yes, there are set expectations, set standards, set things that people will tell you you'll experience, and then maybe you don't, or maybe it happens at a different stage of your pregnancy. And the biggest thing that I've learned from my pregnancy is that every single pregnancy is different. Mine has been different to my friends, to what the midwives expect, to what healthcare professionals say. It is completely different, and you cannot just expect that during the first trimester you're going to experience morning sickness and then it's going to disappear in your second trimester. That's not true. You could have it throughout your whole pregnancy. So I've broken this down. I've got notes because there's so much to talk about and I don't want to forget anything. But I'm going to start off with explaining that I am now at my 23rd week of pregnancy. So I'm going to be talking about my experience up until now. So I've done my first trimester. Great. Tick that box. Second trimester, I'm kind of in the middle of that at the moment. So that is where I'm going to get up to, basically. So firstly, the morning sickness thing, like every single person is different. People say that you'll have morning sickness and it should subside by your 12th week. Lies. Absolute lies. I have still got morning sickness and I am 23 weeks into my pregnancy. Everybody is different. I've also thrown up. Lots of people don't actually throw up. I mean, if you watch TV, then you very much think that everybody throws up in when they have morning sickness. Also not true. Most of the people I speak to don't actually physically have sickness. They just feel nauseous. And then it comes to things like your other symptoms that people don't really talk about because morning sickness takes the limelight, and that is blood pressure. So my blood pressure is extremely low. You get that measured in your first midwife appointment. And that, for me, was very normal. Like, I already have low blood pressure because I'm so fit and active. And during pregnancy, it's been even lower. And they say that that's really good. It's healthy. It's important for the baby, blah, blah, blah. However, the symptoms of low blood pressure have been dizziness, nausea, and can actually be vomiting. So my morning sickness might not necessarily just be linked to the morning sickness side. It could be just related to my low blood pressure. And all of these things are not explained very well if this is the first time that you're having a baby. The next thing I want to talk about is fatigue. Now, fatigue is different depending on whether you're in your first trimester and your second trimester. That's the experience that I've had. In my first trimester, I was absolutely exhausted. And it was a very strange feeling of, I physically cannot do the dishes. I cannot vacuum the house. I cannot do any of my normal chores. I can't even put a wash in the washing machine and then fold clothes. That was how tired I was. I was sofa bound, didn't want to work, had zero motivation to do anything. And I've never experienced anything like that. And that lasted at least 2 months for me. So that is something to be very prepared of. Like, I put my hands up to these women working, I don't know, not even 9 to 5s, like 10 to 4s, and still having to go through their first trimester. You are absolutely exhausted. I mean, not everybody, because obviously everybody's different, but for most people, the majority of the conversations that I've had, you are exhausted. And for me, if I didn't have the flexibility of the job that I do, then it would be hell. Absolute hell. Luckily, I work for myself, so I don't have to always push myself so hard, but we will talk about kind of the mindset around that later. So the fatigue is different, and then you move into your second trimester and you're tired and your body feels tired, but your energy is back. So you're able to do all of those things that you once felt like you couldn't do, but it's just a little bit harder. And some days will be worse than others. During my second trimester so far, I've had really, really kind of like just body fatiguing days, and for no reason. Like, I haven't gone to the gym, I haven't done anything, and I just feel like I've run a marathon, and it's just so bizarre. But as I said, everybody will be different. I have exercised throughout my pregnancy, and just going to get rid of that. It's itching my hands. I have exercised throughout my pregnancy, and as a result, I think that has probably impacted my energy levels for the better. However, who knows? It's my first baby. Could be making that up. Let's talk about boobies. So I have never really had boobs. I've always wanted boobs. I've even contemplated getting a boob job, but now my boobs are bigger. I do enjoy them more. I think they're much nicer. But everybody does change. I know that I personally like the shape of my boobs. However, what I've noticed is I've started to get some discoloration underneath my nipples. I think it's stretch marks. It looks a bit different to stretch marks, but I know that it's probably just like the skin growing and changing, and also all of that activity that's going on in the breast to prepare you to feed your baby. Additionally, your nipples change, so just be aware, like if you have great boobs and you want to have a baby, then your boobs will change, and there may be a mental conflict there. I'm very relaxed about it. I'm really excited to breastfeed, so for me, it's a very much like this is part of the process, very accepting of it. But I have massive brown nipples, like people tell you this and then your body does change and it's like, whoa, what is this? It is strange and it is different, but I think it's also a great thing. Like you have the gift of being able to feed your own child from your body. What an amazing experience. The other thing I've noticed about my boobs is sometimes like they're really, and maybe it's not my boobs, maybe it's my nipples, they're really tender. And for example, I'm having a little boob touch up. They don't feel tender now. And randomly I could just be like taking my t-shirt off or taking my jumper off and being like, ooh, that's sensitive. And it's just a bit different. And sometimes maybe it might be a bit sore. So body changes do happen. I think that your boobs obviously get bigger in the first trimester, but your nipples don't really start to get bigger until your second trimester. That's my experience. The other weird thing that happened was probably, I think it was week 15, 16, is I was like, oh, my nipples are really cold, like they're leaking. And I was producing colostrum. Now it's the tiniest little droplets of colostrum. If you don't know what colostrum is, it's basically what's referred to as all the goodness that comes out in the initial part of breastfeeding. So before the milk comes in, you get this like lovely golden juice, and that's got all of like the immunity benefits and goodness. So your breasts basically start to prepare for that, and that can kick in at any point in your pregnancy. I'm pretty sure most people experience it mid to late pregnancy, but I had it, I think, earlier. Some people don't experience it at all. I asked my friend, and she is due next week, and she didn't have it until, I mean, she still hasn't told me whether she's experienced it, but I asked her a couple of weeks ago and she's like, no, I've never had that. So everybody is different. You might experience colostrum leak, you might not. The mood swings. Right. I personally, and also my husband, doesn't think that I've been particularly moody. I have felt the mood swings, don't get me wrong, like really agitated, really low tolerance for human beings, but haven't necessarily been like crazy out of control, emotions everywhere. I would say the biggest thing was, I think, agitation for me, like just not being able to cope with human beings and just having no patience with them and getting really cross and falling out with people. And that's been my experience. So, and not my husband, like, yes, we've argued and there was a period in our relationship which wasn't nice, I'd say late first trimester, but we're super in love right now and really happy. So touch wood that lasts for as long as possible. I'm super aware of the fact that I can be a hormonal bitch, so I try not to. The pee thing. So I have had to wake up once a night at least to go to the toilet for a wee. Obviously, the more water I drink closer to bedtime, the more regular I wake up in the night. I would also say that the wee thing is different for different people. During the second trimester, though, I've felt my organs, and specifically in the last few days, my organs being crushed by the baby. That's a weird feeling. It's just an uncomfortable feeling. It's not painful. It's just uncomfortable. And that's meant that I've needed the wee desperately, really quickly all of a sudden. Just because the baby's on the bladder. So it's pushing against the bladder. And obviously that makes you want to wee. But do prepare for broken sleep, because I used to sleep 8 to 10 hours a night, unbroken. Now I know I'm going to wake up at least once just to go to the toilet. Cravings, I'm going to quickly skip through this just because I haven't really had any cravings. I know my friends have had weird cravings, like vinegar, like pure malt vinegar, and drinking that out of the bottle. I haven't had that. The only thing I've craved is McDonald's, and it's happened twice in the whole first and second trimester, where I've just been like, oh my gosh, I have this overwhelming urge to get a McDonald's. I don't even really like McDonald's. I never buy McDonald's before I got pregnant, but I've had it twice in the last 5 months. So there we go. So more of the mental health perspective side of things, I think it's really important that we focus on the self-care. Now, everybody's like, you need to look after yourself, blah, blah, blah. Now, what does that actually mean, and what does that actually look like? I personally found that I was extremely hard on myself in my first trimester, because I just thought pregnancy is going to be easy. I can't really see anything right now. I can't really feel anything right now. But why am I so tired? So as a result of that, you are so tough on yourself, because you're like, I can't get all the things that, like, you feel useless. You can't get your chores done. You can't get your work done properly. You're not as productive as you used to be. All of those things can make you feel really frustrated. So be very aware of the fact that the mental challenges and changes that you will face, especially in your first trimester, which I found the hardest so far, are difficult. They are really difficult, and don't expect it to be easy. I did, and I've learnt my lesson. Another part of that is like the smile and wave boys type thing. Like, I very much am very tolerant of people giving me advice, even if I'm like in my head like, I don't agree with that, or it's just so unsolicited. You will get so much unsolicited advice from people. For example, yesterday I was like, yeah, I'd like a home birth to somebody. And they were like, oh no, just go and have a medication, like telling me to go to hospital and have a hospital birth. I don't want a hospital birth. I'm not going to have one. Well, unless I really, really need to. But I really, really want a home birth, and it's really important to me. And I don't really care about medication. Like, as much as I can avoid it, I will. Before I got pregnant, I never took painkillers. I would stay away from any kind of chemical-based substance. But that's just who I am, and as a result of that, I want to have a natural, unmedicated home birth. And the reason I want it at home is because that's where I know I'm going to feel comfortable, relaxed, and I'll be able to do my best. In a hospital, I don't feel that comfortable. I feel like there's a lot of pressure around me, a lot of lights, a lot of stimulus. I am in the process of being diagnosed for ADHD, and I think that has a big part to play. And a few more things about the mental health side of things is which somebody might not have told you yet, is the guilt around resting. I have felt so guilty about resting. My family, my friends, my husband have all said, you need to rest. You're literally growing a human being inside of you. You're growing organs, your body's moving around, you're not optimized, and you need to rest. And I feel so guilty for resting. I don't know what it is. I don't know why. I think it's a hard work ethic. I just found that really difficult. And if you're somebody who's quite ambitious, quite hardworking, gets things done, quite productive, you'll have to learn the hard way that your body just cannot always cope with that. Even when I was sick before, like I had a flu or something, I would still get on with my day and I'd push myself, even if I felt absolutely rotten. Whereas during pregnancy, it's completely different. Body image and the way that it changes throughout the pregnancy is also something that is different for everybody. I remember I was at a baby shower recently, and somebody said, "Oh, that person's baby bump is so nice. Like, they're so lucky they've got a nice baby bump." And I was like, "What does that even mean? What the hell's a nice baby bump?" And that made me contemplate everything. I was like, "Do I have a nice baby bump? Like, what does a nice baby bump look like?" Like, your bump and your tummy changes all the time. I know that it can be really scary with your body changing. I'm starting to develop really not very much, but like stretch marks on the sides of my body. So just like where my hip bones are. They're not super obvious, and I'm really grateful that I haven't seen any stretch marks yet. It's something that I'm personally very self-conscious of, especially around my stomach, because it's my least confident area of my body. I really hated my body to start with at the beginning of pregnancy. I just felt swollen, chubby. I felt like I looked unhealthy. That's the best way to describe it. And now I'm in my second trimester. I feel better. I'm more confident with my body. I feel more pregnant, and I think that helps. Like, I like my bump, and I like the fact that I now look more pregnant, whereas before I just looked a bit chunky. And from a vanity perspective, I just didn't like it. I didn't feel great about that. So if you're somebody who has quite a self-conscious mindset, then just be aware that you might need to work on yourself and do some therapy, and also lots of self-care around your body image, because it's a big change and you don't know what you're going to look like the next week. 2 more things to talk about. Number 1 is your motivation throughout your pregnancy. My motivation changed drastically. In my first trimester, it was very, 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 very low. No motivation to do absolutely anything. Second trimester, some days I will be like, I want to start a new business. I want to do this. I want to create this type of content. I want to apply for this. I'm going to go and do this. I'm going to go and run a marathon. That is literally one day. And then the next day you're like, oh, I can't be bothered to do anything. Why have I set my sights so high? And all I want to do is sit down and watch the TV and eat a nice, full, wholesome meal. That is so unpredictable and frustrating, but it does happen, and it's just the world of pregnancy and the magic of growing a baby inside. And I'm going to finish on a positive note, feeling the baby. I started to feel the baby at about 20 weeks. Some people feel the baby earlier. I didn't. Some people feel the baby later. I love feeling the baby. And when I first started to feel the baby, I was like, this is so exciting, like amazing, amazing, amazing. But now, and I feel really guilty for saying this, but I get like baby movement fatigue. I feel mentally exhausted from feeling the baby, because I'm constantly like, oh yeah, there's the baby. There's the baby. Before, because you can't feel the baby, you sometimes just forget that you're pregnant, which is quite a nice thing. Like, if you don't have any symptoms, you're like, oh, getting on with your day, nothing's different. Now, because you constantly feel the baby, you feel the pressure on your organs, the pressure on your stomach, and it's always uncomfortable. It's not it's not always a nice feeling. The kicks are nice, they're sweet, but as I said, and I don't know if I'm being completely ungrateful here, is the fact that it's exhausting, and being reminded that you're pregnant and all of the symptoms that come with pregnancy can be hard to deal with. That doesn't sound very positive, does it? But on the lighter side of things, it is amazing to have a baby move inside of you. It's lovely when you get your partner to feel the baby, and they do actually feel the baby. It's not easy, but they can sometimes feel the baby, especially this early on. And it's a really nice moment to share. I'm really excited for when I can see the baby move. That hasn't happened yet, and I hear that happens in my third trimester. So I will update you later on. But apart from that, I don't want to make pregnancy feel like the most exhausting, draining thing. It is amazing. There's a lot of change happening, but it's beautiful. And I'm a big believer in the fact that having a baby is the best thing you can do in the world, and the hardest job in the world, but the most rewarding. So don't put this off. You don't let this put you off having a baby. It's amazing, and everybody's pregnancy is different. Some people love it, some people hate it, some people like me, and I love and hate it, and it depends on the day.